If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then how many words is a moving picture worth? Eyewitness testimony, someone else's words describing a scene or scenario can illustrate only so much inside the heads of an audience. But when it comes to video, say when used as evidence in a trial, video is one of the most compelling mediums because if it happens on camera and it's recorded, the replay happens right in front of our eyes. The power of video is hard to deny. So it is with advertising these days. Social communication is increasingly becoming visual. Recent stats show that the average American watches 6 hours of video a day. Add to that all of the emojis, GIFs, memes, and the billions of images sent through text every hour. It's a fact. People are primed for communication through the visual medium. But are lawyers ready to deliver good video? And what's the benchmark for good legal advertising on film anyway? How can lawyers harness and understand the power of video marketing for their law firms? Let's find out.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by Consultwebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for law firms that can see why the villagers were right to lock us in this tower. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in personal and professional developments. I am Jake Sanders, known to the frightened villagers as the Virgin Count. I am Jake Sanders, known to the frightened villagers as the Virgin. I am Jake Sanders, known to the frightened villagers as the Virgin Count Daiquiri. And with me, the only vegan vampire I know, Paul Goulius. Paul, are you excited about Halloween?
No, I'm not, because there's no candy that's vegan. You know, it's milk chocolate.
Oh.
Jelly beans got gelatin in them. I can't eat anything, man. There's no vegan candy.
Well, and then even if you are a vampire, how do you live?
I don't know. I'm just sad about it because I have these dietary restrictions as a vegan.
Which is one of the saddest parts about eternal life.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
What's on the show today, Paul?
On the show, we talk about the power of video and advertising and sit down with the founder of Crisp Video Group, Michael Mogill, to discover what it takes to make game-changing videos for law firms. And then we take Michael downtown for questioning. 5 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The link today is from HubSpot.com. It's by Adam Hayes. It's the state of video marketing. It's a huge survey of marketers and online consumers about video habits, how they watch video, what they like it, how they want it, where they get it. It's a really, really good download. So I suggest everybody get it. I'll go through this enumerated list, Paul, because I want to do it like you do it.
Do it, man. Enjoy it.
So there's 6 things here. Video use is on the rise. 2, people watch video almost 3 hours a day at work, which that blew me away. The 3rd one is marketers love video because video really explains things well. Consumers love it. If text and video are on a page, 72% prefer to watch rather than to read. Videos are shareable, and LinkedIn video is on the rise. Snapchat is not doing as well with commercial video exploration, but LinkedIn video is doing really good. I have a hot take on this. What was your hot take, Paul Julius?
There's a bunch of percentages and statistics and numbers in here. And the 2 that really jumped out at me were when they were asking marketers who cited video as a tool that helps them drive various areas of business performance. And they gave some of these numbers to back it up. That says 80% of marketers say video has increased dwell time on their website. And then a little bit below that, it says 81% of people have been convinced to buy a product or service by watching a brand's video. That can't be a coincidence. You keep people there longer. If you give them good content, you know, you're helping to get your point across. in a much more tangible and relatable way than, simply words on a page. Because people don't consume content online the same way they do in a book. You scan online, you read a book. And this way here you have a much more visual element that's happening there, something to watch. You don't necessarily have to concentrate and read it.
Yes, I totally agree. And my hot take, that makes sense. You're absolutely right. It is effective. It works. There's not a coincidence. You got good stuff on your website. People are there hanging out. They're gonna get in contact with you. My hot take is that video is great, but to do it right is so crazy, so laborious. I don't think people can really appreciate it. Later on, we talked to Crisp, Video, Michael Mogill. They make beautiful videos, great sounding videos. And that's my whole point, is that audio is huge. You got to get the microphones dialed in. That is a huge thing. People actually look with their ears. If your video sounds crap and it looks great, that is a huge ding. You got to get that right. Lighting, making sure backlighting, front lighting, floods, and all this stuff. It's huge. Are you paying attention to that if you're deciding to do video advertising for your law firm? Steady cams, good editing, full resolution mixdown, good graphics, and then writing a good script. Something that's in line with your SEO and your advertisements that exist, keyword stuff that happens on your website. I mean, you got to have a plan on what you're going to do with the videos once you have them. You can have a crisp quality video, but unless you figure it out and connect it to a marketing strategy, then you just have a really, really cool video. I think your dwell time argument is great, but if that page that they're dwelling on doesn't have some compelling call to action, you're missing out on an opportunity. You've already done all this work. Can you do the extra step and connect it to something that matters? So that's what I would say.
We were just talking about this a little earlier. As far as production goes, even if you're not, I would, crisp production is at the top.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like their videos, their stuff, their editing, it looks amazing. But something I've noticed about these kind of things is that if it's done right, even not quite on the, but still on a professional level, you don't notice, but you do notice when it's done wrong, and you don't want to get noticed for that.
Nice. Yeah. What a great idea. It's like, I can appreciate the sound of an orchestra and it's just sort of bland, but the minute somebody's blowing pickles in the French horn section, I hate the whole thing. It's just like, you ruined it for us, Stanley, or Gretchen. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Equal opportunity insults here on the Lawson podcast.
Right. That's right.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Any lawyer looking to grow their business online can generate more leads from their website by hiring Consultwebs. After working with lawyers exclusively since 1999, we've tested thousands of web designs and marketing strategies, so we know what flips and what flops. For more information, visit www.consultwebs.com today.
And now, for a lawsome interview.
Michael Mogill is founder and CEO of Crisp Video Group, the nation's fastest growing legal video marketing company. He's helped thousands of attorneys from solo and small firms to large practices differentiate themselves from competitors and earn millions in new revenue. Crisp has been named to the Inc. 500 list of America's fastest growing companies. A sought after speaker, Michael often presents at national conferences on innovative ways to create exponential business growth. His advice has been featured in publications such as Forbes, Avvo, American Bar Association, National Trial Lawyers, Huffington Post, and Wall Street Journal. And now things get really interesting for Michael as he brings his unique blend of heat to the Lawson podcast. Mr. Mogill, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. You just made me sound very, very important. So I'm honored to be on the podcast.
Thanks, brother. We're honored to have you. So let's jump into it. So we think on this podcast that marketing and advertising are different things. And we get the sense that you and Crisp feel that same way. You guys are selling more than just good-looking videos. Tell us about Crisp and how quality advertising for lawyers is about more than just making eye candy.
Yes. So ultimately, I think one of the ways, in which Chris came about was just the fact that I felt that there was a need, and there was kind of a missing link between essentially producing great content and then ultimately leveraging that content to actually drive business results and ultimately to drive clients and cases within a law firm. So, for example, at the time when I started the company, people were telling me like, no one's interested in online video. There's no future there. I'm not kidding. This was roughly 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago or so. And everyone told me not to do it. But what I saw was that traditionally the creative process was very frustrating from the business side. So meaning that, you could hire someone off Craigslist, or you could hire like a big agency, like an Ogilvy or something like that to produce a video. But then you were dealing with guys that were talking about, well, here's the type of lens that we shoot with, or this type of camera, or this type of frame rate. But I felt like they were really speaking two different languages, right? And what business owners were interested in is like, that's great, the lenses and all those different things. But what about like, how does this get the phone to ring? So ultimately, where we really focused is just how do you bridge the gap between the two? We'll handle all the details in the back end, ensuring that it's good quality. But even on the note of quality, I think that that's just a bonus. But the real important thing is really the messaging and the storytelling, because I really think that the most effective form of marketing is storytelling, especially when we are marketing toward discerning clients and you're trying to attract more like high value cases. Candidly, if iPhone videos and Skype videos and webcam videos were driving 8-9 figure trucking cases, that's what we'd be in the business of doing. But we have found that if you've got a great story and then on top of that you've got really great looking content, then that's going to be a very strong brand play, and it's going to connect and engage with people. In terms of the question, marketing and advertising, you can put out a piece of content and just check the box on it. But when you're really marketing effectively, you're considering a multi-channel approach. You're considering who is your ideal client, how do you engage them, what do they care about, like why in the world, let's say you're on Facebook, like why in the world would they want to follow a law firm on Facebook? Because my dentist, for example, reaches out to me and they send me e-blasts and they send me like things on Facebook and they're like, follow our page, right? And I'm thinking, why, right? Like, why would I follow their page to find out, we got this new special on, on cleanings and whitening or, something like that. So we always think about that, and what type of content can a law firm produce that's really going to engage their audience and actually get them to become a fan before they become a client.
And so it's interesting talking about, making this content, making this stuff available and kind of bridging the gap between making something good and getting it out there. 5 years ago, all the social media channels started to pivot to video, with Facebook and YouTube popping up more in search results. We see people consuming more video, and Netflix is eating everyone's lunch. But it seems like it's been hard to get lawyers to adapt creating content, even just like written stuff like blogs. So can you dial in a little bit and talk about the power and necessity of using video in legal marketing, and maybe specifically to some of those different channels?
Absolutely. I mean, and to do that, I think you really got to consider like what is the biggest barrier and what's the biggest challenge. And what we see in the legal industry is that there's, for consumers, there's no shortage of options, right? There's never been more attorneys and more law firms. I mean, you see some markets where there's thousands of law firms competing. So you've got, a very saturated market. On the consumer side, there's a lack of trust factor for law firms and attorneys. We even did kind of a man on the street thing where we went to the park and we asked people what they thought about attorneys and attorney advertising, and they didn't regard them as highly as doctors. Let's just say that.
Right.
So, and where does that come from? Well, I think it stems from the fact that when they see a lot of law firm advertising, they're seeing people juggling bowling pins and yelling on top of semi trucks and and things like that, which is great for getting someone's attention, but does it build someone's trust? When you consider the challenge of saturated market, consumers have tons of options, you've got to stand out and differentiate. And then also it's conveying a reason as to why someone should hire your firm as opposed to another firm. Because, you could do any Google search pretty much in any market and see guys on the first page that all have, we're going to fight for you, provide aggressive representation. We're the best. We have, 300 years of combined experience. And to consumers, if those guys are all saying the same things and they're all super lawyers and they've all got 10 Avvo ratings, they cannot tell them apart. From that standpoint, the biggest thing that you can do to differentiate yourself is really have a unique value proposition in your story, right? So essentially, why did you decide to become an attorney as opposed to a chiropractor or a veterinarian, for example? And then also why, what is the culture of your firm? What are your values? Why do you do what you do? And through that, you can really establish relationships. And that's, those are the types of firms that people remember. It doesn't mean that you're all things to all people, but, just to give you an example, we have an attorney who's an ultra marathon runner. He runs like 100-mile races, and we produced a video for him. We're like showing him like running in the forest and so on. And someone could think, well, what does this have to do with practicing law? Well, he bridges the gap between it because the endurance that takes and the mental focus and mental toughness it takes to run a 100-mile race. He also brings that into the courtroom, and he actually leverages that with his clients as well. So that helps to humanize him. We have other attorneys that have adopted 8 children, and are very family focused. We have so you always have that differentiator. So that's what we're seeing is the most compelling way to do it. And if you're struggling to produce content or even what type of content you should produce, the best thing you can do is just to humanize your firm, to really convey that you're not just attorney at law, but rather, a human being with a family, that's ultimately making a great impact for your community. And I think that's from our experience and at this point working with over 500 law firms, those are the firms that are growing the most quickly, and those are the firms that are attracting the best cases.
So here's my question. I like that you guys mentioned it doesn't matter if it looks good. It can be great, compelling storytelling. You can get the best story too. You can save all those people from the cave, those soccer team from the cave. A lawyer did that, a lawyer hot air balloon. But if you don't connect it to business goals and you don't connect it to marketing, how do you just help in specific tie your video performance to like revenue stuff? Just real kind of quick off the cuff, because I know a lot of people are like, I'm down, I want to be involved in my advertising, but some lawyers are scared to get involved with their advertising because they'll be held accountable. So I think there's like 2 questions. How do you connect like a good looking video towards real business stuff? And then for some people who are scared to get involved, I think video is a great way to get their skin in the game, kind of like they are deeply involved in their advertising now because they're in the commercial, so can you kind of talk about those 2 questions real fast?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of when I talk about storytelling, I'm sure I can, hear people on the other end. They're like, Mike, that's cute, nice, fanciful stories. But I'm telling you, this is the differentiator, and this is the game. And in terms of being able to measure that efficacy, I mean, the biggest thing that you can do. So, we always take baselines. Where are like various metrics such as not just Google search ranking, but phone calls, leads, time on site, bounce rate, all those different factors. There are ways in which you can measure the effectiveness of a video. So, for example, if you're looking at video specifically, watch time, like the percentage of a video that people watch, that's a good indicator in terms of like how engaging that content is. Things like video views, those can be nice, right? I think those are more vanity metrics. They're not always indicative of, just how many phone calls and ultimate consultations is that driving. The more important indicator is going to be what are the actions that they take after watching that video. And what we're seeing is just generally that video is a great tool to engage them. It's oftentimes actually a great tool to drive that next action, like a call to action in the form of, okay, now submit this form on our website or call to schedule an appointment. But you want to really keep in mind, like, again, how does video, like from the time that you implement it, what changes within the firm? Like how do leads change? How do calls change? What is, the quality of the cases themselves? We have many firms that reach out to us and tell us that, people are calling them and saying that I hired you because I felt that I could connect with you. We had a firm in New Orleans recently that their client had actually originally chosen to hire another attorney, saw his video, ended up canceling her appointment and ended up hiring the attorney with the video. And she'd call him to tell him that. We just helped the firm in Texas get the largest trucking verdict in all of Texas. So it's like a 9-figure verdict. And they said, hey, we liked your videos, right? And that's insane, right? Like but most of the time they're not going to say that. They're not going to say anything to do with the video. When you ask people, they're going to say Google, right?
And here's my thing, Michael. I think the point is that you have to be listening and you have to set up things to measure those. You have to set up the metrics. I like that. you know, you could just show up and be a Steven Spielberg and do like a sort of Transformers knockoff, for your law firm and then get out. But I love the fact that you're talking about, I'm going to show you, we're going to listen, we're going to pay attention, we're going to observe. There's a great experimental quality to this, but it shows in the fact that you're coming through with this testimony that people are talking about, that you helped them kind of like change the game. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to say, as a marketer, it's like, I heart you. So speaking of game changing, you've been kind of plucking this string with Crisp, the Game Changer Summit. It's happening in November. You have a book coming out by the same title. Tell us about this, and where do you think Crisp is headed? Where do you see the dynasty headed?
Yes, well, I mean, so the game changing stuff. It's interesting because about a year ago, maybe a little bit over that, we always take a theme for the company, like each year, right? We always try to like center it around something we find that it really helps with our culture and so on, and we've always really pushed towards the theme of like innovation and changing the game almost to effectively create a market of your own. I'm a big believer of like abundance mentality. So from the sense that, if you're putting out great value out there, if you're really pushing the envelope and raising the bar, I guess pun intended, then good things will come, right? It doesn't mean that one client or one case for one firm means one less for another. I think if you do great work, there's always room for number one, right? So with the conference, it originally started out, clients have been asking us about this for a number of years, and we felt it was a good time. And I said, okay, we'll do, a nice small 200-person conference, and we announced it. And then 30 days later, we sold out of the 200. So I said, all right, great, let's go for 500, which was the capacity of the venue. We really wanted to do like a 2-day law firm growth conference that's all about essentially how do you grow and scale your law firm, and not just really drilling down into how do you focus on being like the best law firm owner, essentially, and everything down to like mindset and marketing strategies and so on, and even like tax strategies, but then also focusing on how do you build a game-changing team? Because, I think you can go fast alone, but you can go far together. And if you've got an amazing team, that's how you really can grow and scale. So depending on when this podcast airs, we're down to 19 tickets for this thing. So it may actually be sold out. So I may actually be the bearer of bad news. But,
yeah, I know.
But if someone is interested, they can learn more about it at crispsummit.com. And then the book will actually be doing the book launch at the conference, and this is something I've poured almost the last 9 months of my life into. I would say that if for anyone listening that's written a book, I respect you a great deal, because now I've learned about this process, and I really wanted to distill all the things that we've learned over the years in all the different marketing strategies and everything from the various case studies, and just make it actionable, tactile. This is how, like, if you're, a solo or small firm and you come into a super saturated market, here's how you even have a chance. You can't compete on spend, right? You can't compete with the guy who's spending, $5 million a month on TV and billboards. So you've got to be strategic. But then also the book is for the firm that became the big firm by doing all the right things and doing good things within their community, and ultimately bringing value and running a good business. So how do you make sure that continues, and not, because, with the internet and social media, and so, now we're seeing, even with traditional advertising, the cost of acquisition, the cost per lead is increasing. They're, attorneys are spending more, but they're essentially they're seeing less of a response. So how do you keep a strong foothold within your market? I distilled this all into like a very short, I think it's roughly 300-page tome, and it'll be out in November. And I hope people get value out of it. At no point do I ever say in this book you should hire Crisp. I simply say, here's how you do all this stuff yourself.
Yeah, and then they realize how overwhelming it is.
That's what I wanted to ask about. We've talked to different people who are in various, some of them are in tech, software. They have different marketing services or whatever for law firms. And the one thing I'm always curious about is, we can present these things and say, look, this will change your business if you just do this, or here's some software that's going to help you do this. And it seems like lawyers, they're receptive to it, but then they get back in the office and it's just boom, like there's no time. So do you have any tips or tricks or anything for a law firm or a lawyer who's looking to make a change, but maybe not necessarily sure how that works, or is maybe feeling a little overwhelmed? Where do you start? What kind of steps do you take people through?
Yeah, and that is a great question. I mean, we could probably do an entire podcast just on that topic. But if I had to say, look, and this is coming from someone who started the business, $500, like, from nothing, literally nothing, no loans, no investors, no partners, none of that stuff. So, if people hear about us now giving away Teslas and all these things, I promise there was no trust fund or anything like that. So I can empathize. No one ever has any time. We're all busy, right? Now is never a good time for anyone. But I think that if it's, I find that there's a difference between ambition, which I think pretty much everybody has. I mean, who doesn't want to do better? Who doesn't want to grow their business? Who doesn't want, to achieve their goals? And then ultimately what people are willing to do to make it happen in terms of like what that commitment really is. You find the time, right? I mean, it's for my entire 20s, I don't think I ever I didn't take a single day off, 7 days straight for all my 20s. If that's terrifying to the person listening, I would say you could simply come in a few hours early, do it on a weekend or something, or at least to plan it out, to at least come up with a game plan. But then I think the single biggest thing that I see to really grow and scale is you've got to have the right people. It's not so much thinking about how I'm going to do this, but rather, do I have the right who's? Do I have the right person that is an expert in this space to be able to really rely upon their knowledge? So whether it's people that you hire, like to people in-house, or even external partners, it's getting away from trying to do everything yourself. I think you should know enough at least to be dangerous, or know if someone's screwing you over, right? But
Right.
at the same time, I don't think you should be designing your own website or doing your own SEO, or any of those things. I think you just have to work with the right partners, because if you've got the right team, again, I mean, that's really the big thing. It's focusing on the who. So let's say you're the entrepreneur and you're the visionary, and you know exactly like what it is you want to achieve, but you don't necessarily know, like, okay, well, how do I go from where I am today to getting there? It's, again, having the right who's and finding those people, and not compromising there, because I've gone through a lot of misery in my life in terms of building, the business and so on. And like, I've found that people are always the hardest part, but when you can find the right ones and you've got the right team, I mean, you can rely upon their expertise, and, they can fill your gaps, so you can focus on the things that are not just your strengths, but the highest and best use of your time.
How can people learn more about you, Michael Mogill?
Yes. So you can learn more about me. I mean, obviously you can visit our website, crispvideo.com. You can, of course, always, send me an email if you have any type of marketing question. I don't know if that's going to open it up to the fire, but I don't know. I generally like this stuff. Whether we work together or not, it's just michael@crispvideo.com. And I'm always happy to help. And then, if people get value out, from the book, that'll be out in November. It'll be on Amazon. It'll be a hardcover, and I'm actually doing the audiobook too. So they'd ask me, they're like, "Did you want a professional person to do it in a studio?" And I was like, "This isn't like it's not like The Hobbit or like Harry Potter. I don't have like character voices. Like, no, I'm gonna, it's like a business book. It's not like The Hobbit or like Harry Potter. I don't have like character voices. Like, no, I'm gonna, it's like a business book. So,
I would have jumped on that. I would have been like, "Can you get Christopher Walken?"
Yeah, that's right. Well, I would say like Morgan Freeman, but apparently now, not anymore, right?
A little pricey. A little pricey.
Yeah.
5 questions we ask everyone.
What was the last book you read?
Ooh, Willpower Doesn't Work. Yes, we actually did it as a team book club. Amazing book if anyone wants to read something good. And that was the book. These are quick fire.
Yes, Sal, absolutely. Off the cuff. Number 2, what is your favorite place?
Santorini.
Number 3, what sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
Well, outside of the Lawson podcast, I sometimes visit Consultwebs.com just randomly throughout the day. And
you're a weird man, Michael.
It's interesting. I visit Mac Rumors a lot. I'm like a geek, so I always like to see what I probably check that site at least once a day. I'm a big like Reddit guy. I'm always checking that kind of stuff out. I'm not big on in terms of a lot of like news sites and things like that. I don't even watch like a lot of TV or the news. I mean, just like ultimately, I'd see like what is the value here.
All right, number 4. If you were stranded on a desert island and could only pick one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
Okay, one condiment. Sriracha. That's one that's got me this year. I don't know. I guess I missed out on this whole, all my life on sriracha. And now I almost gotten to the point where I'm almost carrying this thing with me. So yes.
All right, so we made it to the end. Number 5, after a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
Oh man, I can't give anything but a truthful answer here, and I'm a huge gamer. I am on the PlayStation. My wife thinks this is ridiculous, by the way, but I found 4:30 a.m. to about 5:30 a.m. is when it is, because I still have a marriage to actually keep, but. So she's asleep and I'm down there, and she she thinks it's hilarious, but I'm screaming at some kids and playing some Call of Duty on the headset. You never know this thing, right? So that's how I unwind and decompress. Because I grew up, I didn't have those things, right? We grew up poor, and we grew up in very much low income housing and things like that. And I'd say I had a great childhood, but I never had kind of the newest console or anything like that. So I'm just kind of the grown up version of that guy. And so yeah, that's how I decompress.
For show notes, links, and info, go to thelawsomepodcast.com or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawsome.